Have you ever thought about what it is that you're actually saying to yourself, your inner self, when you are beginning the onset of a migraine? Have you ever stopped to think about what exactly is going through my head right now? What am I saying to myself? I'm here to challenge you today that if you took those thoughts and changed it into a mind body declaration that would just transform your entire state of your nervous system and dissolve a migraine, would you believe it? Would you believe it is true if I told you that? Well, stay tuned to this video because I'm going to show you the third part of three-part pieces of a pie that will lead you to successful aborting, dissolving, and stopping a migraine in 30 minutes or less. My name is Kai. I'm an integrative physical therapist, a neurosensory expert, and a trauma-sensitive coach. And I'm here today. I'm so happy to have you because we are beating the system, we are breaking cycles, and we are busting migraines right here. You've come to the right place, and we're doing all without pokes, pills, and procedures, drugs, or medications. Okay? This is part 3. If you have not watched part 1 or part 2, you must go back and watch those. And it's about the breath, the authority, and the declaration. This video, we're talking about the third piece of the puzzle. All 3 of these are equally important and vital, necessary components of being able to successfully dissolve, abort a migraine in 30 minutes or less. So, as I've been talking in the first and second part, a migraine attack doesn't just come out of anywhere. It's had 0 to 72 hours of like a prodrome to come into effect, and then boom, it's like a last-ditch effort. Your body's begging for a way. It's like a survival primal way to bring restoration and repair and balance back to your nervous system. Your neurosensory system's been in chaos for 0 to 72 hours. So it's using migraine to bring back some for you because you haven't been able to do that for yourself. One of my clients, she came up with the term migration. So this declaration is one of the most important pieces that you can use with the mind portion of it. So remember, the breath is mostly the body because it's dealing with sensation and emotion. Authority is dealing with emotion and attitude. And the declaration is dealing with the attitude and the tolerance. So we're going back to this acronym for the final time. The S is sensations. The E is emotions. These are used by the breath, and these involve the body. The E and the A, emotions and attitude, involve the posture of authority. So it involves a little bit of the body, and these two here involve the mind. So it involves a little bit of the body and the mind. And then the mind-body declaration involves the attitude and your tolerance. This is the declaration. And this is all body, these two, and these two are mind. So now we're dealing with mind, the attitude and what you're tolerating. So what are you tolerating? Ooh. And in order to tolerate on a certain level, you have to be really good at avoiding. So what are you avoiding? What are you dismissing? What are you denying? And or what are you ignoring? Ooh. So we're gonna go deep into this. So I'm gonna give a little background first, and then I'm gonna go into how you actually use the mind body declaration. So stay till the end because I'm gonna get to that at the end. Okay. I told you I was gonna go into a story. So there was a young girl, like she was a student in college. She used these defenses. She was really stressed out by her exams. Most people on some level that deal with migraines will agree, at least on that stress tends to bring them into heightened frequency or intensity of migraines. And her defense mechanism was she would smile feeling this negative way, and she would like laugh about it, and she would also talk really fast as a defense mechanism. And if you like, what are you talking about defense mechanisms? Go to the first video and look in the description. I actually have a link for a list of defense mechanisms that are common. So talking super fast is what she did, and smiled and laughed a lot when it didn't really match. That's what she would do. It was her defense mechanism. And why was she doing it? She was warding off an emotion. So, what is she feeling every time she smiles and giggles and laughs when she's talking about a situation that doesn't warrant that behavior? She felt a loss of control when she was talking about the stress with her exams. But then going deeper into it, it went, so we're peeling off layers, and she was able to eventually really sit with it and feel with it and be with it and realize it was a heaviness. And if you've ever understood what a heaviness feels like, it can often feel like there's an elephant sitting on your chest or shoulders. And that heaviness is actually sadness. And when you're using defense mechanisms to ward off this feeling of heaviness, it's you trying to desperately ward off this feeling of sadness. You don't really know what the outcome's going to be after the exam, especially if you feel like overwhelmed by having to perform and have a good grade. Video that I did, part 2, she was able to distinguish between the red light and the green light posturing. She tended to have the green light posturing. Perform, perform, perform. Perfection, perfection, perfection. That was her thing. That was her persona. That was the mask that she put on to survive her environment. She had a very loving father, and she was really close to her dad, but he was at the same time very demanding and harsh in what he expected of her. And she had, both of her parents were very successful entrepreneurs in business and did extremely well for themselves. So her being their child, she felt this unbelievable pressure to be successful also. And she put this pressure on herself. But let's go back to the harsh, demanding dad. You're probably thinking, oh, he was one of those parents that was like, you better get a good grade. And if you get less than a B, I'm going to tell you like it is, and you're going to be punished and blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about harsh and demanding in that way. They barely actually, the parents never really voiced how they were expecting her to like be all this and that in college. She had an emotional flashback to, as a child, what anxiety meant to her and where that feeling of anxiety came from. So what was creating this? She had gotten an incomplete in one of her classes because she wasn't going to it, because she was so overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, I can't do all this work. I can't. So she just stopped going to class, and she got an incomplete, and then it stressed her out even more. And then she was even more sad. And then she was like, look, I'm not going to, all these feelings of, I'm not good enough. And then she was like self-prophesying. But let's get deeper and peel the onion back farther. The sensation in her body that was driving her symptoms due to exam time. She had a dad who was raised, boys don't cry and show emotions. And if they do, it's a sign of weakness. And he was taught to feel shame if he was to ever cry or show his emotions. This caused her to become a very harsh inner critic and really criticize herself whenever she felt any sadness. He had a mantra and he drilled this into her that you control yourself at all times. You don't ever, this was his standard for himself because this is what he was taught. This is how he was raised. He was taught that if you ever lose control, you're going to let them know how you feel and then you're weak. And we don't do that. And so she tied sadness to shame, which is a huge drive, negative driven emotion, and sends neurotransmitters, all these neurotransmitters that lead eventually to migraine. Look at how just being sad, which is a normal human emotion that we all experience at some point in time in life, if you allow it to come to your body and through your body, it moves and goes away eventually. It doesn't like hit you like a tidal wave tsunami and like take you over and shut you down and you're just done. When we learn to block, suppress, wall off emotions, the body still is yearning for the experience. You are made of flesh and blood. You are humanity. And that's how we were created. Our bodies were made to feel and experience and express itself. And when we learn these archaic, bizarre, patriarchal, like intergenerational weirdness, it takes our body and it does something it wasn't meant to do. And you're inhibiting something that's really natural and meant to be felt and expressed. What was really driving her nervous system into craziness was the suppression that she can't be sad. And when she was able to realize that, and when she pinpointed it to she was sad, that as she was growing up and developing her nervous system, she was sad that she was in an environment that didn't let her cry and express her sadness as a little girl. She was able to have compassion for herself and what she didn't get in her developmental years. She was able to look and say, wow, that was my dad's high standards for himself. And I don't want those high standards for me. I want to be able to cry and be okay with feeling sad and not feel like it's a threat or a danger or I'm disappointing somebody that I really admire and look up to. Instead of having these defenses, she started to let down her guard and just allow herself to feel the sadness whenever she felt it. And just acknowledging where that root came from and looking at it from a different perspective, having a value that's your value, not having a value that was put onto you. Boys can't cry. And that was his standard that he put onto her. And that wasn't a value that she wanted. She wanted to be able to be soft and fluid and not rigid in her expression of sadness. Would start to recognize her defense when she would talk really fast or when she would smiling, laugh, and giggle when it wasn't what she felt. And that was her rewiring. And just opening up like a flower blooming like that, she was able to step into who she really was, feel what she really felt, and respond to the world in a different way. A common one in migraine world for migraineurs is suppressed rage, suppressed anger. Like if you weren't allowed to be angry, because that's not what a woman does. Good girls don't get angry. Women are to look pretty and not say anything. Anger is actually a way that you're able to keep yourself safe. So if you feel that anger coming up, you're going to do something about the boundary that's being crossed. Migraine is really about you going against yourself. So when people feel that they have to suppress anger, they don't have a right to have a different opinion about what's going on. They don't have the right to say no. That's a big one of society today. Women are not allowed to say no. And if they do, they're being difficult and they're being a lot and they're too much. Unravel, or I should say, peel back all the onion layers and get to how that might be one of the ways that you do different things defensive wise to prevent yourself from feeling angry. Like one being you blame yourself for things, you get mad at yourself, you let the harsh inner critic voice just go nuts onto you instead of being rightly upset at the injustice going on around you. So putting it to where it really belongs instead of directing it back to you. Huge root of many migraineurs. What do you tolerate because you don't let yourself get angry, upset, or frustrated or annoyed? What are you tolerating? And so this is a big thing when we get into things of like women who've dealt with abuse in the past, like from childhood and things like that. They end up tolerating a whole lot in adulthood. And it's almost like the inner child within us is like getting upset with us for tolerating things that we shouldn't be tolerating. Your inner child is trying to keep you safe with a migraine because you're not feeling what you really feel because you're shutting it down. You're tolerating things you shouldn't tolerate. And in order to tolerate things you shouldn't be tolerating, you avoid, dismiss, deny, and ignore the truth or the reality that's going on around you. Big one in migraines. The mind body declaration is literally speaking over. So remember, we have the three parts. We have the breath that we've started that we continue for the 30 minutes. We have the posture of authority that you've started, the feeling that you have within you, going into being grounded and rooted, comfortable in your own skin, not the mask, not the persona. Now we go into the mind body declaration to speak against whatever you're tolerating. You're going to speak against whatever you've been defending against. Really personal to you as a person and what your history is, what your emotional flashbacks involved, how you were wired to behave, and what defensive views you have learned to use in order to block how you're really feeling. Like for me, I'll tell you my story. So with everybody in my program, I usually tell them 3 phrases to learn and to memorize so that when they come and it's time to take that 30 minutes and dissolve this migraine, and they have within them these 3 statements that really mean something to them, and it's speaking to their brain. It's speaking to that old wiring. It's speaking to those intergenerational crazy lies and traumas, like the dad, like you can't cry and show your emotions because you're going to lose control. You're going to let people know how you feel, and it's a sign of weakness. My 3 statements that I would say, Bible scripture based, I really wanted to stand in, I am who God created me to be, and He did not create me to suffer from migraines. I was created for more than that. And so I would speak these truths. Like one I would always say is, I am more than a conqueror. Boom, I am more than a conqueror. I can overcome anything that comes against me. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. So this is how I would say it. I would say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I am more than a conqueror. And I would say, I do not accept this migraine anymore. If you're coming down with the onset of the symptoms, you can immediately go back to the 0 to 72 hours and go back to that situation where you tolerated something you shouldn't have. Either you didn't speak up, you didn't express your emotions, you let somebody walk all over you, you let somebody take advantage of you because you didn't want to rock the boat and you didn't want to be mean, right? Because that's what society has said for many years, that if a woman speaks up her mind, if she uses her voice, if she goes against the grain, she is being mean, she's being difficult, she's being too much, she's being annoying, she's being an old hag, right? So going back to the situation that you realized you dumbed yourself down, you made yourself silent, you tried to make yourself small, you put their needs, wants, and feelings as a compulsion ahead of your own. So you ignored, avoided, dismissed, and denied your own feelings and needs and emotions. That's a little bit of backtracking you'd have to do in the moment, but if you can pinpoint it right then and there, then you can speak against it. If not, you just have your three things. So I would say with authority that I have authority, like my feelings matter, your feelings matter. You being able to say to yourself, my feelings matter. I don't have to ignore, suppress, deny, dismiss, and avoid them. I don't have to put my feelings last. I don't have to turn against myself and blame myself. I'm allowed to feel all my emotions and not be afraid of them or feel that they're a threat to other people. I'm not responsible for other people's emotions around me. They're responsible for their emotions around me. I'm responsible for myself, my behavior, and my emotions. And if I speak up and say no to something, I don't have to feel responsible for how their reaction to that is. Like if they get upset, I don't have to absorb that and like try to placate that. It's really personal and unique to you and your life and your situation and what you're rewiring. The first thing you want to do when you start feeling those horrible sensations and symptoms come on is you just want to like die, right? Because here we go again. So I explained in the first video how I would deal with migraine with aura. So it would be 30 minutes of the aura and all the lights flickering. It would be the fatigue, the brain fog would hit in, the nausea would start to hit in. The real like, it's like this spacey feeling that you feel very, I like to say it's the ultimate feeling of self-abandonment, especially that aura. And that aura would last for 30 minutes and then boom, it would be that knife through the top of the head, going through my right eye, down into the base of my skull. I would have the real big nausea. I would have like the horrible, horrible pain. And you migrainers, you know what it's like when you get attacked like that. So, right when it happens, you have to start this process. And so it's the absolute opposite of how you want to act and how you want to feel because everything's coming on you like this tsunami of like, oh, not again. And knowing that in a half an hour, this 8-hour migraine is coming, whether it be migraine with aura, migraine without aura, vestibular migraine, or hemiplegic, it comes on a certain way and you know when it's coming on. And being able to take authority and realize that you have agency over this mind body attack, because that's literally what it is. It's your body going against how you have been driving it the last 0 to 72 hours. And that's for episodic. If you're having chronic, you really want to look at when did this migraine become chronic and go back to your timeline, which I'm not going to draw here, but I drew the timeline, and you have to look 0 to 3 years prior to this chronicity. What was going on? What SEE, what significant emotional event or experience were you going through where you built defenses, where you were suppressing, avoiding, denying, dismissing, ignoring the enormity of this emotional experience? How did you try to shove it under the rug? How did you try to pretend it wasn't there? How did you just try to be what every migrainer woman knows, the feeling of I have to be this strong, independent woman and I just got to keep trailblazing. I just got to keep trucking it. I can't stop and sit in anything or deal with any emotion. I got to keep going because you have the duty, the roles, and the responsibilities hanging on your shoulders. It's taking a step back from that, realizing that your body can't sustain that forever. And when you can go back and look at when the chronicity began, you can sift through some of this stuff that I spoke about in these 3 videos and look at it from a different perspective and realize that your self abandonment became unsustainable when your migraines became chronic. And yes, it can be transformed, it can be changed. And if you're at the point where medications are no longer working as a long term solution for you, this is awesome when you can use these 3 parts, these 3 videos, put them together, unfold in the way that you're able to have the posture of authority, where you're able to truly embody and feel your mind body declaration. Because mantras don't work if you don't feel them. If you're saying everything from your head, it's not going to work. Your subconscious mind is too smart for that. It has to feel it. It has to, and repetition, that's really the secret. We do different things with your nervous system physically to prepare you to be successful for these 3 parts. I'm just going to tell you the whole process in a nutshell now here. So you have the beginning of the symptoms that you're feeling. You go and take a seat somewhere by yourself, the SEAT. So that's going to a bathroom, turning off the lights, getting really quiet, locking yourself away, going into your room if you can, same thing, or going into your car. Get away from the people in the situation if you can. That's paramount. That's the beginning of being able to connect back to yourself after this self abandonment. Beginning the physiological sigh. Begin this process of starting with your posture of authority, speaking to your brain. You have the authority. Like God says, when you're his child, you have the authority to trample over serpents and scorpions. So just like that, you can speak with authority over this attack that's trying to come in and steal from you. So how would you address a thief coming into your house? You wouldn't fall on the floor and be like, just take everything, like whatever you want, just take it. I just whatever you want. No. You go to the door and you with authority say, no. Who the hell do you think you are? Get out of here. I'm calling the cops. In other words, you wouldn't let the person in, or you just keep the door locked, right? And so that's what you're doing with this posture of authority and mind body declaration. You're refusing from what to come in to keep coming in. The 0 to 72 hours prior to that attack, you are speaking, you are thinking negatively, you are defending against things that actually want to be experienced, you're tolerating a whole lot of stuff. And so you're saying no more to all of that. And you're embodying who you really are, the authority that God has given you, that you have, that you maybe haven't tapped into ever in your life. You have the right, you have permission to stand in a position of authority. And when you use that and then speak life over yourself with your 3 declarations, whatever means something to you, to speak against whatever wiring that you had wiring, it is powerful. And it is a successful way to abort a migraine and dissolve it in 30 minutes or less. You're invited to a call, book a call where I give you a test. It's a neuroresilience test, and we get to see where your root lies. And if you score a certain way on this test, it shows that this work would be helpful for you. I will let you know. And if it's not, I will also be honest and let you know as well. But either way, you're going to get an inside peek at your nervous system and your neuroresilience level. If you're curious, there's a link below, book a call, and we can go from there, because this community is growing and there's room for you here in this community if this is a good fit for you. So thank you so much for listening. Please put your comments and questions below. I was going to be looking to answer them. And yeah, keep watching videos, because here we're beating the system, we are breaking cycles, and we are busting migraines. Yeah? All right, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much.